Here we are. Well, hello everybody. This is Scott Roberts, and this is the Explorer Alliance live presentation of the OpenGOTO community. And with me today is Tyler Bowman is not here, and Jerry Hubble also had to take a leave of absence today. But we have our special guest, Professor Ian Morison, live from the UK right now, and we have Kent Marts live from the showroom here at Explore Scientific, and Heath Creekmore live from the Tech Support Center here at Explore Scientific as well. And just kind of hanging out in the background, because I just like the eye candy, is the Explore Remote Telescope that I've been testing the power system on and everything. So, but I'm going to give my first introduction to Professor Ian Morison. He's been telling me to call him Ian this afternoon, but very, very nice man, and has a very deep experience in professional astronomy, has worked with Jodrell Bank and I guess Arecibo, and that's just the tiny tip of the iceberg of what this guy has done in professional astronomy. He's a famous author of astronomy books in the UK, and I think his latest book is The Art of Astrophotography. And I'm going to let him do some introductions of himself and what he's done. And thank you for coming on our show.
Well, it's a real pleasure, Scott, and thank you very much for inviting me. I feel it's an honor, but thank you.
It's an
Okay,
honor
well,
for
look,
us.
none of you in the USA, I think, will ever have heard of me, so I'll say a little bit about my life and also about the observatory, where I'm actually still an honorary member. I still do work for them, but they don't pay me anymore. I was lucky in a way. I was brought up within 100 yards of the south coast of the United Kingdom. So I could walk down to the beach, and the skies there, can you imagine, in the 1950s were totally dark. So I had a wonderful view of the heavens. I had to wear quite strong glasses. I was very myopic when I was about 10 or 11. And you can see I'm actually not wearing any glasses now, and that's because last year I had 2 cataracts removed. I reckon I can see half a magnitude fainter objects now, which is great.
That's great.
Anyway, the optician in our little village was a great friend of my dad. He gave me lenses, and I made very simple telescopes out of cardboard tube, probably loo rolls for a start. And I was able to see the crater on the moon and probably the moons of Jupiter. I can't remember anything else, to be honest. But I kept my interest up in astronomy. At university, I was able to do a module on astronomy. And then I also was actually quite interested in radios. I was in the Royal Signals at university as well, playing with radios, running around the country, which was fun. And just as I was about to take my finals, I saw an advert saying, come and read radio astronomy at Jodrell Bank Observatory, the University of Manchester. And of course, that fitted quite well. And amazingly, they took me in, and I've been there ever since.
Wow.
You probably may have heard of Jodrell Bank.
Oh, absolutely.
The picture is up on just above me. It was the first really large, fully steerable telescope. It's now over 60 years old, and one might think it's pretty useless now. In fact, it's been rebuilt 3 times, and the last work finished just a few weeks ago. They completed the painting, I'm not quite sure. It had a complete new surface around 2003. It's a bit like replacing your old mirror with one with a peak to valley of something like a 20th of a wavelength. So it's a pretty good surface. All the drive systems, the computers, I think there are 11 computers that coordinate all the motors to drive it. So it tracks better now. So I promise you, with the receivers we have on, which are about as good as the laws of physics allow you to make, it is really still front rank. It's still the third. The Germans built the 100-meter Effelsberg dish, which is pretty good. It's still a wonderful telescope. And then, of course, at Green Bank, West Virginia, we built the Green Bank telescope. And I'm always pleased that whereas the Effelsberg telescope was 100 meters across, the Green Bank one had to be 105, because you weren't going to make one 95 meters across, were you? That would have been very silly. So it's still a front-rank instrument. It plays a part, a role by itself, studying neutron stars, which are rotating. They're called pulsars. It's a wonderful instrument for that. It also takes part in what we call the Merlin array, which is an array of telescopes stretching across the UK, all now linked by fiber. So we have 30 gigabits per second links between them, so have a very big bandwidth. That actually does a lot of work in collaboration with your wonderful Very Large Array in New Mexico. And the two fit together very well indeed. They have more telescopes in a short spacing. We have some ones, fewer of them, but over a larger spacing. And the two fit together wonderfully. And finally, all of our telescopes are part of what I like to call the European array, which has telescopes stretching from Spain and the UK in the west, from Finland in the north to Sicily in the south, and is one of the largest linked arrays now, again using fiber optics, we have in the world. So it's still a front rank observatory. It's been an honor to work there for around 60 or 56 years, I think now, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
However, I kept my interest in optical astronomy, and I sometimes think I should have been an optical astronomer. I was able to acquire so I'm coughing, a 10-inch telescope when I was about 26, it's about 50 years ago. Not so many people had 10-inch telescopes in those days, and helped found our local astronomical society about 30 years ago. I think I'm now its patron, which means I'm obviously very old, but doesn't matter. It's a very nice society. Now, one thing I'd started doing probably 20 years ago was to write some books, and I also have written a lot of articles for the UK amateur magazines and some of the professional ones as well, of course. But more recently, I've taken up writing. I don't call it a blog, I call it a digest. It's an astronomical digest, because it's really a set of, in fact, now nearly 100 articles, all about amateur astronomy, lots about astroimaging. And in fact, just recently, I put up a little review of the little mount I've got, which is nice. So that keeps me busy, and I'm hoping to put some of that material into a book before long. That's, I think, enough about me, but I've been very, very lucky, and I still enjoy life to the full. Currently, I may say I'm in total isolation because my wife is due to have an operation next week, and we're hoping it won't be cancelled because of the COVID. It's only a hip operation, so it was cancelled in April, and hopefully we'll be fine. So I can't go out of home at the moment. Anyway, I was researching an article about equatorial mounts for one of the UK magazines. I have a column in it every issue. And I came across your small, I can never remember the name. Anyway, the
IXOS 100.
Okay, well, I'll just say 100 from now on, the smallest
That's
one.
cool. That's fine.
And I saw this and I looked it up, and I got very impressed. In a way, I thought it deserved to be bought because it was so good. There's a star atlas called Interstellarum, which is pretty expensive. But again, it's a wonderful thing, and it deserved to be bought as well. So it's the same thing. And I managed to convince myself I had a need for it. It wasn't too hard, even though I've got 3 other equatorial mounts up to and including an astrophysics one.
Oh boy.
And the reason
That's
is
great.
I wanted to use it for 2 reasons. The first was to take it to star parties with my 6-inch Celestron C6, which it will cope with. You had to add another little, you need 2 more of your rather beautifully made counterweights to cope with that, but that works very well. But perhaps more usually, we can't have those at the moment, I might say. We haven't had one for about 9 months now, but we usually have a few a year. But more usually to use as basically a star tracker with one of my 3 relatively small refractors from 66 up to 80 millimeters. And it copes with driving those and looking after them very, very well indeed. So that's the main objective, to use it, I suspect. The 3 things I really liked about it, well, I quite like the idea of driving it from a computer. I'm actually using Windows 10 because my Android, I think, would cope, but it needs to be upgraded with memory and things. Anyway, it works fine with my Windows laptop. The second thing I liked about it were the clutches, the variable tension clutches, just like my Losmandy GM8. And it may be, I know you sell a GM11 as well, don't you, or a version of it?
We sure do. Yeah.
And that I knew would mean I could actually move it manually around the sky, having adjusted the tension correctly, and then let it track, which is sometimes a useful thing to do if there's nowhere specific you're trying to get to. But in fact, I must say the last 2 nights I've used it, I've actually mornings, I've just gone to the region, done a go-to, and then just moved it slightly using the very nice slew control. So that it all works very well. That's the second thing. And the third thing I really liked about it was the fact it's belt driven. Now, I don't know, but a lot of people, certainly in the UK, are upgrading their Skywatcher HEQ5 mounts with what's called the Rowan belt drive.
Oh.
Now, I haven't got one. Those mounts are said to be rather noisy when they're slewing, and it improves that, but also it improves the tracking. So I thought it'd be very good to act as a star tracker. Now, I've got 3 star trackers actually, ranging from a nano tracker, which is tiny, which can cope with a small camera and lens, to some rather bigger ones. There's one called the Star Sync, which is American. It's actually a computerized barn door mount, which I think is wonderful.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've got one of those as well. But none of them could really cope with those refractors unless you bought the um, extension parts to put a counterweight and things on, which I didn't really want to do. Now, this, of course, can cope easily with that, and you haven't got to buy a tripod, and it's so light, it's easy to take out, and I can lift it up without the counterweights. I may say I can easily lift it out of my house and up, in fact, into the garden, which is a few feet higher, and set it up within a few minutes. So it's great for that. So those are the three things I really liked about it. I was unable to buy it in the UK because everywhere was out of stock, but I finally tracked one down in Germany, and that did arrive in a week or so. So I've had it just for a few weeks. Now, of course, as I'm sure you know, whenever you ever get a wonderful new piece of equipment, it's cloudy for the next 3 months. And it's been pretty close to that now. And so I haven't really had a lot of chance to do any real astroimaging with it, just a few little samples. I'm currently using a couple of Sony full frame mirrorless cameras.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They have that you can get them actually relatively cheaply secondhand now. They have a wonderful feature that their live view actually sees the stars. So for trying to align it and orientate the camera, it's wonderful. You don't have to take lots of exposures and move and adjust and take one and adjust again. So it's been setting up is so quick. And that's what I've been doing. Now, this is perhaps interesting, I hope, to some people. You only have this little sighting hole. And I know there is a attachment polyscope, that's fine. I've got 3 polyscopes, I suspect, over the year. I don't use any of them. Now, I'm at about 10 or 12 degrees more northerly latitude than you. So getting down is all right to look up through one, but getting up again, I find a real problem. So I'm afraid I use a little laser beam. I've got a pointer with an attachment, so I can actually send it up through the central hole, and that gets me pretty close. And I only want to be pretty close. I don't want to be perfect. Because if I take, let's say, half an hour's worth of, let's say, 30-second exposures, I actually want the star images to move across the sensor. But no more, so that in a 30-second exposure, you don't actually get any star trailing.
Okay.
But hopefully over half an hour, it's moved maybe 50, 100 pixels. Now, why is that? Well, these cameras obviously aren't cooled, so they can suffer from hot pixels.
Sure.
Now, you can use what's called long exposure noise reduction, and that takes a dark frame, it subtracts it, gets rid of them. But 2 things. One, it halves the time you're looking at the sky. And I'll tell you, that time is very valuable where I live in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
And secondly, those individual dark frames add a bit of noise into the image. So I don't do that. But think about this. If you've got a hot pixel, which is the same brightness as a very faint star, over 50 exposures, that star will integrate up, perhaps becoming 50 times brighter. But if the pixel has moved across the sensor, it won't. So relatively, its brightness falls. And usually just an adjustment of what's called the black point of your image will get rid of them. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So that's a technique.
That's a great technique.
I use short exposure. And the other thing, of course, with respect to your lovely, is it Elon Musk, is that if you do get some of your images dive bombed, losing 2 or 3 out of 50 or 100 doesn't really make much odds. So I think that's another advantage of using short exposures. So that's how I've been using a little bit. Now, if I can screen share, we'll try this.
Sure.
You may need to let me do that. I've just got a few pictures which aren't particularly good, but it's all I've been able to do.
I think everybody's transfixed with your stories and your explanations. I love your British accent. It's awesome.
Yes, I must admit, when I went to a conference across the States by train, I got picked up by 2 ladies to ask me to go and have meals with them. I was a lot younger than I might say, and that's purely because they liked our accent.
Of course.
And mine actually is very neutral. I know I'm coughing a bit. When I was in Russia, I spent an afternoon recording things so they could teach, normally they're scientists, but possibly they're spies, how to speak English. I'm sorry about that. Oh. Okay, can you actually see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Right. Okay. Well, this is one of the 3 telescopes I've been using it with. It's a 80 millimeter semi-apo refractor with a focal reducer, and actually it will give me a pretty flat flame across the whole of a full frame sensor, which is fine. So that was the first telescope I used, and this is a rubbish picture in a way. That's Deneb there, but it was in an evening. There was nothing very much to point it at. I just wanted to see what the stars look like, and they're perfect. And those were with 30-second exposures. But in fact, I was able to analyze what had happened during the period of the exposures. And the tracking was such, I could easily have done a minute or 1 minute 30. And that's with I think a 600 millimeter focal length. So that's perfect for me, no problem at all. I then used a little Takahashi 60 millimeter refractor. And here I took 15-second frames.
Wow.
Now
Nice.
I wasn't down to 15 seconds just because I was worried about tracking. But the trouble with the Orion Nebula, you see at the bottom there, is it's got a hell of a dynamic range. And if you use much more than 15 seconds, you blow out the center. It was a very humid morning, actually, and that's why the 3 stars of the belt are all a bit fuzzy. Anyway, I've just zoomed into those 2 bits, and I think you can see the stars are pretty good, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can see the 3 little, I love the center of Orion, the 3 little stars there, just to the lower left of the trapezium. Now, the trapezium is obviously not resolved. I'm not surprised, but you can see the little three stars there well. And above that is the Running Man nebula, which has come out. And that's not a very long exposure, actually. And just to the upper left of Alnitak, which is the lowest star of the belt, is the Flame Nebula. And I was really quite pleased how that came out. So that was quite good, and I was pleased with that. Okay, this is one I took 3 mornings ago. Twice I have got up at silly o'clock when Orion and Taurus have been in the south, and it takes me about 20 minutes, I guess, to get dressed and put everything up into the garden. And I was able on the first night to take 4 frames before the clouds came in, and on the second night, this night, 6 frames. So that is simply an image taken with 6 frames of the Pleiades. Obviously, there's no nebulosity there, but I thought the stars looked quite nice. Now, a year or so ago, I took 5 hours exposures of the Pleiades, and that showed up the nebulosity really quite well. But I suspect because you've been stacking and aligning hundreds of frames, the stars didn't look so good. So we have long hours to wait inside at home at the moment. And so I thought I'd have some fun. I took that image, and with some time spent, I removed all of the stars from it. So I just had an image of the nebula, and then I added your picture onto the top. So that was 96 seconds. And that image is 5 hours and 96 seconds.
Oh, wow. Very nice.
So it's not a picture I could ever send to you as a picture taken with your telescope, but it is your mount. It is one I could use in our local astronomical society. So thank you for that.
Sure.
So I think I've probably said far too much. Anyway, there is this Astronomy Digest. You could perhaps search for lots of articles. And every month I do a night sky guide for the university. Just put night sky geographical bank, and it's a fairly detailed one. It's not quite up to what you get in things like Sky at Night, Sky and Telescope, but nevertheless, it tells you most of what you might need to know, what to look out for at the moment, obviously in November, because I've just put that up. Obviously, we've got the Leonid meteor shower coming up around the middle of the month. So there we go, and thank you very much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Ian. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And a wonderful presentation. And gosh, I couldn't sell if I was selling the IXS 100 on a show, I certainly couldn't have talked about it any more thoroughly or better than you did. So thank you very much.
You can employ me to do that. If you
okay.
Shows, all right.
That is a deal. Thank you so much. All right, take care. Cheers. Okay, all right, so up next, we're going to bring on Heath Creekmore. He's been very busy today in tech support, and yeah, you can see his eyes are bulging right now with all the activity. Friday, for whatever reason, was a busy day. So But what can you tell us today, Heath?
Well, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Most of today has been a lot of sporting goods, honestly. We haven't had that many telescope questions. It's hunting season here, so people are, of course, sending in their optics to get worked on and everything. It's been really a lot of sporting goods,
Yeah,
sporting
so
optics.
like binoculars and spotting scopes, and yeah,
Exactly.
a lot of people don't know that we have a collimating machine to
Hmm.
actually test the collimation and make adjustments, so we can make adjustments to the prisms that are inside binoculars. If you go to a place, Ian, or Heath, I don't know if you've been to like Cabela's or Bass Pro or someplace like that, where they have just a ton of binoculars on display. If you hold them up and look out at a distance and see the pupils, I'll have to show you how to do this, but you can see the pupils, and they should be concentric, right down the center of those lenses. And a lot of times you'll see one is up and one is down, or one is this way and one's that way, and it's because they're out of alignment, out of collimation. And so we have collimated. Not only we collimate every one of ours that we sell, but we have collimated other people's binoculars, and sometimes we do it every season. So, and I think that's what you're running into right now,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly. Tyler wanted me to say that they filmed the astrophotography contest rules
Okay.
today, and he said hopefully sometime next week they'll have that out. So
Okay.
throw that
All
out
right.
there. And then we had a question on Instagram. Why is the carbon fiber model of each of our scopes so much more expensive than our essential series?
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking that it could be your glass type
It
carbon
is
fibers.
definitely the glass type. If we're talking about FCD 100,
Yes.
glass is much more expensive than FCD 1, right?
Yep. And then we have carbon fiber. That's hard to work with, so it's
And
more
that's
expensive.
more expensive, sure.
And then I was thinking of the focuser is different. It's a 2.5-inch hex
Again,
focuser instead of.
that's right. That's
Yep.
right.
Uh, Other than that, the only thing I can think of is weight. It's a lighter weight.
Carbon fiber is much light, makes a much lighter weight instrument, and a lighter weight telescope performs better on any mount that it's put on. So that's very true. That's very true. But that's not the additional cost of it making it lighter weight. But it is a great feature of carbon fiber. So,
Yeah.
right, and
And how about thermal
the
expansion?
carbon fiber tubes are remarkably robust. You can scratch them, and if you don't have a deep gash in the surface, you can take a heat gun and just run it over the area where the scratch is, and the lacquer that's in that carbon fiber will blend together, and the scratch pretty much will disappear. So that's and you can't really get that with a metal tube. So right,
How about thermal
scratch is a
expansion, Scott?
scratch on a metal tube. But
Scott, how about thermal expansion? The carbon
thermal
fiber.
expansion is almost non-existent on these carbon fiber tubes. We have had our largest, our ED 165, characterized by advanced astrophotographers that actually measured the expansion and contraction of the tube over a large temperature range, and it pretty much means you're not going to have to refocus if the temperature changes a couple of degrees.
So, Scott, do they measure that by if it gets colder and it shrinks, they can measure how much
Yeah,
they have to change their focuser by
that's right.
microns, right?
That's right. So these
So,
guys that have electric focusers and can see the exact distance that they had to change that focus to achieve perfect focus again, after a temperature change, they can tell you, and metal tubes do that. There has been some talk about, oh, well, a carbon fiber tube will hold temperature longer than let's say a metal tube, and that a metal tube would diffuse this temperature quicker. But, this is really only true for larger telescopes. We're talking about telescopes under 10 inches here, okay? So, the benefits of carbon fiber really far outweigh the metal tubes in both stability and also in lightweight feature.
To a
Yep.
certain point, holding its taking longer to cool down theoretically might be a benefit, or to warm up, because that expansion and contraction takes longer. You're actually going to hold your focus better than if it cools down.
It
and
actually
keeps
doesn't,
dropping.
yeah, it doesn't really, it may be a length of time, but the people that did these tests, I mean, we're talking hardcore amateur astronomers, astrophotographers that image all night long. So, yeah. So I would say that, it is, carbon fiber is known to hold its structure, over these temperature ranges. Yep. Heath, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely. Thank you. I'm
All
gonna
right.
go ahead and
I
head
know
out.
you need to get back, so take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Now, I will say that if you're going to put a heat gun to your carbon fiber tube,
Yeah.
be careful. Don't get it
Yep.
too hot.
Yeah,
Take,
that's true.
warm it up, smooth
Yep,
it out.
warm
with
it up. Go slow. That's
You know,
right.
and you might get a little cloth and rub on it until you get it soft enough and smooth it out. That's what I've helped do
Yeah.
in
And
quality
don't put your
control.
finger down there and then run the heat
Yeah.
gun over
Get-
it, because
You know,
it's a
yeah,
good way
you'll
to turn a
burn
finger
yourself.
into a hot dog or something. So,
yeah. But
right.
it's amazing how you can make those things disappear.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
not tried it, but I suppose that potentially polishing it with toothpaste might make some scratches go away too.
Actually, the heat gun does a far better job,
Does it?
because I've
Yeah.
done all of that. I've used very expensive auto body polishing compounds, buffing wheels, all kinds of stuff. Nothing matches the heat gun.
Just don't get it too hot.
Don't
Take your
get it too
time.
hot. That's
Take
right.
your time. Go
Yeah,
slow.
you can blister it. So
Yeah.
that's true. So, well, let's get to you, Kent. You are, for the long time, and still today, you're one of the most knowledgeable people that we have on the PMC-8 system. What are the most commonly asked questions about PMC-8?
First, I'll attack this question. We've had, I guess, the CSRs 3 or 4 times this week have dealt with customers who couldn't, their systems kept dropping off, or they couldn't connect, and they traced it back to every PMC-8 system. I should have grabbed one. Comes with a little thing that looks like an antenna. It's got a black tube on it, plastic tube with an RJ12, a phone jack on the end of it. And people think that's an antenna. It's not an antenna, especially on the IXOS 100. And Ian probably has experience with the channel changing device, which is what it is. And if you have that channel changing device plugged into the port that it'll go into, it's not going to work. It's not going to connect up wirelessly, and you're going to be left out trying to figure out, well, what do I do? And finally, by the time you get frustrated enough to call us, you want to, bang your head against the wall because of the frustration levels. And there's been a couple of times that we literally got a picture and went, oh, look, in fact, twice this week that happened. Oh, look, the antenna's in there. Problem solved, just like that. It's little things, but boy, if you don't know it, it drives you crazy trying to figure it out. But that Wi-Fi channel changing device has been a flurry of questions this week. Probably the single most common questions, or let's say 2 or 3, is how do I get my device to connect? And they have trouble with Windows typically. And, we still see a little bit of that residual. Microsoft made a change to Windows that caused it to view us as the way we connect as a problem. That finally got worked out a month and a half ago. We're seeing a little bit of that residual carry over. Machines haven't updated, so that bug is still there. But how to connect? The password's PMC-EIGHT with a capital PMC and an E. It's pretty straightforward, but they can't see it when they type it, and they have problems with the dash, especially on an iPad and Android, where it's hard to tell what the dashes are. and that can present some problems. And then it's just, I can't get it to track perfectly. I can't make the go-to work, or I can't make it track more than 30 seconds. And there's a variety of answers to those, and we just have to go down the flow chart, the if this, then that kind of situation. To each customer is different. It takes a while to work through that process because there's rarely one simple answer. It's generally a bunch of little ones all together. And part of it may be expectations, especially when it comes to tracking. The expectations are that it's going to track perfectly over 5 minutes, or pick your time. And there are people out there we have seen pictures of people who have done 5-6 minutes untracked, but they've got perfect balance, they've got a perfect polar alignment, and they've tested that alignment, and they have a really good feel for what they're doing. So
That's okay. All right.
so Ian.
Could I just say, what I didn't mention earlier, but one of the things I've been so impressed about since I bought it, because I didn't know about these things before, is the fact you have this wonderful program which takes up an hour or so of your time every afternoon, but also the fantastic customer support. And I don't think any other telescope manufacturer or mount has anything like that. So well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We have a very good time doing this and interacting with the people who follow us and the interesting questions that they ask. It does help us in customer service. It shows us where maybe there's gaps in information that we're not giving to the customer. So we try to fill in those gaps. It helps us stay connected with the community. And it also helps us do our part to support the community that supports us. So, we do these daily shows every day, and Monday through Friday. And then we do something called the Global Star Party, which I would love to have you join us on. We have astronomers from around the world that join up with us. And so the next one that we're supposed to have one on Tuesday, but Tuesday is kind of a busy day here in the United States. So I think I'm going to move that to Wednesday. And then that will be through the Americas. Sometimes we have people from Europe join us on that show as well. And then we're going to have the Asian edition. And that is going to feature people like Christopher Go from the Philippines, who does high-resolution planetary imaging. We've got astrophotographers in Singapore. We have the National Astronomical Research Institute of Thailand joining us. So, and they have this amazing, NARIT have this amazing program where they encourage educational outreach in astronomy to the general public, and it's a government program. They spend millions of dollars a year promoting it. So it's just it's a fabulous thing. I wish every country did it, but but it's very kind of you to recognize us for that. And we think that with the power of the internet, the ability to come on and broadcast all over the world, why not? Why wouldn't you give up a little bit of your time to spend with our our beloved customers?
They own the
and
company.
a lot of them are not our customers. It's just they like to hang out and listen to interesting people such as yourself, and to share ideas with the people that they're chatting with, and to give us ideas too. So
Scott likes to say that the customers own the company, so we're really talking to the owners every day.
They do. Yeah, that's where my paycheck comes from anyways, is the customer. They're the boss. And, I always tell all of my employees that we are the janitors of the brand. So they own the brand, not us. Right?
So Scott, what's that in the background?
Well, Ian asked me the same question before the show started, and I said, "Well, that's my remote telescope system. It's my little telescope." And
Step out of the way.
he said, "Which way?"
Yeah, you're
Here.
blocking what's behind you, so you might
Oh,
actually
yeah,
just
yeah.
leave. There you go.
The
There.
computer. So this is the observatory tent we've been talking about. Okay, so here, let me just move out here, and you can see the telescope, the remote telescope project we've been working on. You can log onto it with Zoom from anywhere in the world, and so we plan to let those students from Nepal have the first shot at it and to do some of their first ever astrophotography. I have a desk inside of there. So this is a 50 square foot double room tent. Pops up in just a few seconds, tears down in a few seconds.
Hey, Scott, shut the door so they can see what it looks like, because you have a panel open right now. Shut that panel.
Yeah. You're talking about this panel.
Yeah, shut it so you can see what it looks like, because you have it opened up so we can see into it. Oh, he's got, there we go. These are made out of real flexible metal. It can bend easily. You're not going to damage it. It's got Velcro panels, so each room is its own piece. And so Scott just Velcroed it together now. And so as you can get a feel for it now, where the chair and table are is what I would think of as the computer room. And then there's a door that goes into the telescope room. So you can set up and
there's loops here to nail it down here with a line, and then you can stake it down there too. So
and it also has a tarp that goes over the top of it. And
right.
for you Explore Scientific members, you've got until the end of the day today. And the reality is, if somebody came in over the weekend, those are on sale for Explore Alliance members. It's going to be $299. Introductory price is going to be $249, and you can get it for $199 if you're a paid Explore Alliance member. So you can, and by being a member of Explore Alliance paid at the platinum level, if you pay the $100 to join, $99.99, we send you a gift card for $100 back that you can use on anything. So really, it's a free membership with benefits. But one of the benefits is being at either the standard or the platinum level is you get special deals on new products. And we've got this as a new product. The sale ends October 30th, the end of October, or 31st. But if you happen to come in on Sunday or Monday, I'd probably, look the other way and not tell Scott and sell it to you for a good deal since you're an EA member. But that's a great deal. You're getting $100 off the retail price. And so email us at Explore Alliance, and Scott, put this down there in the chat, would you? Email us at explorealliance@explorescientific.com. So that's explorealliance@explorescientific.com. We'll need your name and your phone number. We'll give you a call, and next week and get your order taken care of. Also, we have a new product that's coming out that we announced yesterday. There should be an email going out here fairly quickly to the membership. It's a 2-in-1 finder foot. So it replaces the existing finder foot on your Explore Scientific telescope with a foot that will work either with our finder foot, the Meade Explorer finder foot, or with the Orion Centa Celestron foot. So lots of us have different finder scopes, and unless you buy, not a real great solution out there, this thing is made of extruded metal, anodized black, silver metal screws. It's a really nice piece, and it'll replace the finder foot on your telescope. It can be put on other brands of telescopes. So whichever finder foot you have, you can swap cameras and finders and stuff back and forth seamlessly. It's a really cool product. it's going to be for a really good price, and retails at $49.99, and it's going to be a pretty darn good price on the email. So you Explorer Alliance members, check your email. We announced it yesterday during the First Light Chronicles broadcast, and we sold quite a few of them. I was surprised at the number that we sold, and that people want it. We'll be contacting them next week to get those sales in place. And they did it without knowing the price. They were so excited. So same email address, and we'll take care of you and get it sold to you. And as soon as they arrive in December, out the door you go. Yours are pre-sold. Yours get shipped before anybody else's.
Wow. I'm going to have to get one.
But you have one.
Ian, there was someone that had a question. It had to do with radio astronomy, and they wanted to know if they could make a home, make their own radio dish. And if so they, let me see, maybe with like a satellite dish. Is that possible? You're muted. Yeah.
It's probably got to be quite a big dish, but if you've got a dish maybe 5 meters across, no less than that,
Right.
3 meters, 2 meters, 2.5, 3 meters, it's not impossible. And if you put a low noise receiver at the focus, it's quite easy to observe the sun, and you can actually pick up solar flares. That's certainly one thing you can do, probably the easiest.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require an enormous telescope. The problem with amateur radio astronomy, and a lot of people do it, is that it's much harder to do things that we can do professionally with big dishes.
Sure.
Whereas it's amazing what amateurs can do with optical telescopes. I mean, I think it's said that, with a good CCD system on a 10-inch telescope, aren't you almost as good as a 200-inch was when it first started working? I mean, it's
absolutely.
quite amazing. Quite
That's
amazing
true.
what you can do. It's not so easy in radio, I'm afraid, but there are people that do it, and I'm sure if you go on the web, you'll find things. There are also some little kits of a receiver, and you just have a wire antenna, and that can pick up noise storms on Jupiter. That's
wow.
another thing that can be done fairly easily.
That's interesting.
And the third thing, which we've certainly done at Jodrell, it's not so easy now. What you do is you have an antenna, in our case, let's say pointing down to Spain, all right?
Okay.
At the frequency of one of its analog transmitters, and that's the problem. They tend to be going now. And what you can do is to pick up pings as meteors actually scatter the radio signal forward. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
That's very
that's
That's
quite
very
nice.
cool.
You can actually listen in, shall we say, to
Yeah.
meteor showers, and that's quite a good thing.
I think you can do the same thing with an AM radio. I think you can do the same thing with an AM radio. If you tune off of a station, you can hear a burst of the radio come in, and the
Yes,
same thing's happening. You can do it with an AM radio.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yes. It's
Very
brilliant.
interesting. Now, are there also, have there been pro-am projects with the big professional radio dishes? Do you know?
Well, not quite. We have do you have rotaries in the States?
Rotary
Yeah.
Club?
Rotary Club?
Rotary Club. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, every year they run a science project, and the idea is to get schools all over the country to do something as part of a project, and it's all put together. And I was involved in one of those a few years ago. We actually got students at schools to use our little 10-meter telescope, quite a small one, to actually make measurements of the hydrogen line spectra as you swing across the galaxy. And if you get a lot of that information, you can actually put that together and actually produce a map of the spiral arms of the galaxy. So we did all that, and we actually, have you heard of the Royal Institution? It's a very famous thing in the UK.
Yes.
And in fact, it was lovely to be able to be there and actually give a lecture at this famous desk where all these famous people have actually spoken. And so we managed to get schools all over the UK to produce this, in effect, this map of our spiral galaxy, which I thought was rather nice. So it does sometimes happen.
Seems like I've seen it. We had when we had Mid-States Regional of the Astronomical League meeting here, we were trying to get a guy out of Texas to come up and do a radio astronomy, and seems like he was building a dish with a 18 or 20-inch used television dishes that he was building kits, or he would turn them into a radio telescope. But it didn't work out. He didn't come. But I was really looking forward to seeing that work, and I believe he was doing the same thing. He could get static from Jupiter and storms on static from Saturn and from the sun as well, and do a little bit of rudimentary science.
Several of our astronomy societies do have radio sections. The Nottingham Society has a very good one, actually, and I was there speaking not that long ago, and they showed me, the receiver system. They're really very, very good. It's amazing what amateurs do these days. It really is.
Why don't you, for the people that may not know what radio astronomy is, give us a freshman level introductory course real quick.
Oh boy.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, you'll all know that we have the electromagnetic spectrum, and as you go to longer wavelengths, you go through the infrared, and I use that actually to image the moon. It's actually quite good. And then you get into the very short wavelength radio waves. You may have seen that wonderful image of the black hole nominally in Virgo A, M87. It's actually a picture of the shadow of the black hole, but
Right.
that's been done at very short radio wavelengths. And so the antennas that have done that had to be very high up, like on the Atacama Desert or in the South Pole, so the signals aren't attenuated. But then as you get to longer wavelengths, the radio waves travel further down, even to the ground, of course. And that's, of course, why we can do it on the ground in the UK, where we don't often see the sky, to be honest, but that's not quite true. And there we can combine signals. Well, the first thing you can do is just have a single dish. And we had way back, what's called a 218-foot transit dish, which basically just looked overhead, but could actually sweep across south of the vertical to north of it, swing around about 20 degrees. And as, of course, it couldn't move, because as the Earth rotates, can you see you're looking up at a different spot every time during the night, the sidereal day? So over a period of time, you could actually make up a map based on all the scans you've taken going around the sky. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And in fact, we were able, with that telescope, to detect the spiral galaxy Andromeda for the first time, make a crude radio map of it. That was a very long time ago. And also, in fact, detect the remnants of Tycho Brahe's supernova in Cassiopeia.
Right.
So that's a single dish. And they're very good for doing pulse periodic things, like pulsars. I'm sure you all know what pulsars are. Spinning neutron stars. They give you pulses going anywhere from about 1 every 2 seconds, in fact, down to millisecond pulsars. And funny enough, we built a student telescope. It's arrays of Yagis. We call it MUST, the Manchester University Student Telescope. And I think a year and a bit ago, I built a very simple pulsar receiver based on an Arduino Due, which is one of these little microcomputer things.
Right. Yeah.
And it actually, it's not really powerful enough, but it was able to, in fact, detect quite easily one of the strongest and slowest pulsars there is, one of the first ones that was ever discovered. So that was quite fun. So you don't necessarily need to spend vast sums of money to do it. But then what most of us are doing now, I'm afraid, does get complicated. We link together telescopes over an area, which could be quite a small area. There's a wonderful array called ALMA in the Atacama Desert.
Right.
Atacama Large Millimeter Array, I think that is. And it's high up, so it can work at short wavelengths. And basically, each pair of telescopes at any instant of time, as the Earth rotates, tells you something about the structure of what you're looking at. And if you combine all that radio information together, all the information you've got, you can build up a map, you can build up a picture. And that's what we do with our Merlin array. It's what you've been doing wonderfully with the VLA in the States for many, many years. And then we're now doing that on even larger scales. I mentioned this New Horizons telescope, I think they called it, which imaged the black hole. That's basically a whole Earth telescope. And you have your arrays of telescopes in America, as we do in Europe. So It all works.
Does that create, by merging those together, does it create a synthetic aperture?
Absolutely. Yes. Well, Merlin builds an aperture which is 217 kilometers across.
Wow.
The European Array is building one which is about 10,000 kilometers across.
Oh, wow.
And now we have the same resolution in the mid-radio wavelengths as the Hubble Space Telescope. And of course, the European Array can actually see, I think, things with microarc second resolution.
Holy smokes.
Which is, I think it's the highest resolution of almost anything. Well, the same thing, this New Horizons telescope, likewise, had amazing resolution. It had to see where a black hole was in a distant galaxy. You've got to be pretty good. I'm just amazed how it all works, frankly. I really am.
Yeah. Ian, I had a chance to visit the FAST telescope in China.
Oh, you lucky person.
The 500 meter. And it was very interesting to go to a radio telescope because, we had to have special clearance and all the rest of it. And they were quite careful to make us turn off anything that was electronic because it's supposed to be so quiet up there at the time. But it was that was such an amazing instrument to see that 500 meter dish and the cabin, which is actually quite large, that holds all the instrumentation and everything. It looks like this very small thing in the middle of this bowl, and they could pull with cables. They could pull that up to within 1 millimeter tolerance of where it needed to be positioned, something like that. So
yes, we were a bit involved actually with the design of that aspect. In the heart of that does the major part of the positioning, because it's a fantastic telescope. They can adjust the panels so the shape changes as it moves around the sky, that Arecibo can't do. I'll come back to Arecibo. But then right at the heart of that is, I forget quite the name of it now, but the receivers are mounted on a 5-axis system. And by using lasers up to it, they can actually position it brilliantly, precisely, probably to 10th of millimeters. And that's how it all works. It is a wonderful telescope. It really is. Obviously, it slightly knocked Arecibo off its perch. You must have seen that Arecibo got hurt a bit recently.
Yes, that was sad.
Cable fell down, but I think they should be able to fix it. I hope so. I once was able to go up to the focus of the Arecibo dish, and that was quite scary. Sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that I went there some years ago, and out of a party of about 8, I think 4 of us were brave enough to walk up this very steep slope to get up to the surface, to the top.
Yes.
And that was really quite something.
Right.
Did that have a cool sound effect? Because all the sound is going to be either echoing away from you or towards you, I guess. If you're
Yes, I think it would have done. And again, in our telescopes, I mean, they act like sound reflectors as well. And I got rung up, this is a little while ago, by someone who lived in the nearby village saying, we've been told they're going to alter the flight path from Manchester Airport over our village, which means it will go over Jodrell Bank. Can you think of any good reason why they can't do that? And I said, yes, we can. Because if you're up at the focus of our telescope looking straight up, and you're there, and if an aircraft comes overhead, you can actually lose your hearing. And one of our engineers once nearly did. So that was good. The ironic thing was that they then moved it about half a mile or so to the east, directly over the top of our chief engineer, which I thought was rather funny. Anyway, never mind. So there we go.
Didn't the telescope in China get damaged by a heavy rain or a flood a couple of years ago? Seems like.
I could be. I'm not totally sure, I'm afraid. I mean, Arecibo got hurt when you had a big hurricane,
right?
But luckily that wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. But I'm hoping that's going to come back into use again. I really do.
All right. Well, gosh, thank you so much for being on with us all throughout the program, Ian. And I hope to have you on a global Star Party event at some point. And I will. We do have a European edition, which actually would happen at a sane hour for you. So,
that's nice.
Okay. All right. And Kent, thank you very much for participating today and filling in for Jerry Hubble. And Jerry, if you're out there watching, hope things are going well. And we'll see you back on Monday. And We have Super Tuesday coming up, so our next Global Star Party will happen on Wednesday, okay? And then the very first Asian edition of the Global Star Party will happen November 7th in the morning here. It starts like at 6 a.m. Here in Arkansas. So,
Which would be what time? 12 UTC? Yeah, it'd
yeah,
be
that
12
sounds about right. Mm-hmm.
That's a good time for us. Just one thing forgot to say. I discovered a year ago that I might share the odd gene with your wonderful president.
Oh,
His mother lived in the village of Tongue on the Outer Hebridean island of the Isle of Lewis, 4 miles from where my family comes from.
wow.
So you never know. You never know. Anyway, have an exciting few days. I'm sure you will.
We sure will. We sure will. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it's been a great Friday. I hope that you found this particular show educational and entertaining. And as my friend Jack Horkheimer would always say, keep looking up, and we will see you next week. And have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. There we go.